The title of this video is Don't Take Steroids. And I'll clarify that I think a lot of people shouldn't take steroids, but not necessarily because that they're bad, but it's because people don't have an idea of what their goal is, and kind of don't plan things right, or plan for the risks or contingencies that'll come with steroids. Um, my name is Rafif. I'm a competitive powerlifter. I've been training and lifting for 8 years now, and I've been working out since I was really little. And I should say that I am not an enhanced lifter, and I haven't used in the past, so I'm still a natural lifter. That being said, going down the enhanced route is something that I would consider in the future, and is something that I would potentially do or potentially consider, just because if you're a competitive lifter, sometimes if at some point it's a road that you can cross to kind of get the most out of your potential as a lifter, whether that be you being a bodybuilder or a powerlifter. Um, that being said, who should go on steroids and who shouldn't, and why most people shouldn't, I feel like. Um, the big reason I think isn't so much the health risks, though that does play a part, but it's more like how it'll affect other areas of your life, like what kind of person will you become, you know? So a lot of the time, the more important thing than what you're doing is like how it'll kind of change the person you are. Um, with anything, it's like that. It's like, how will you be different? How will you grow as a person or grow in character? Are you gonna become someone more when you take partake in this action or not? You know, and for the vast majority of lifters, I feel like they don't take enhancement seriously enough. I think the big risk, or the in any situation, you can look at the risk of things, the reward of things, and then the most likely outcome of things. And I think the most, like, the risk reward most likely outcome for people that end up taking steroids is that they'll probably take it, they'll make some great gains, and then at some point they have to come off, and then they kind of feel horrible after. And then once they kind of don't feel good after, then after that, like, you I think, and this is a pattern that I've seen in all my years in the gym, is that the people that took stuff and then came off later, like, their training wasn't the same, and many of them got demotivated and stopped training. And I think that's maybe the biggest risk, is that, like, you'll end up kind of stop training, and, like, you won't want to work out anymore. And that's what ended up happening to many lifters, is that they'll drop out, or they just won't keep it up, or they may find that they have to take steroids to continue to progress, and, like, before they could make a certain amount of progress just training naturally, then once they took stuff and introduced that to their body, suddenly their body needed to use that to continue to progress. And then if their body didn't have that, then it wasn't really wanting to their body wouldn't want to produce its own testosterone, and they just wouldn't be able to make quality gains as a natural at that point. um, I'm still natural, but almost, I'd say most of my friends aren't at this point. And a lot of them, they're either on steroids or they're on SARMs. I feel like in today's day and age, there are some health risks, but it's not crazy. And I think that as technology progresses and as years progress, that there will be things that you can take that are relatively low risk to close to no risk. And often, I think we'll even see in the future that a human being that is, like, enhanced in some way will be able to do more things, and maybe ultimately healthier and superior to a person who isn't doing those things. So before, like, it would be that if you're natural, you're obviously always going to be healthier. But I feel like in the future, um, there will be things that you can take that even you take it at low doses or something, like TRT, or low doses of SARMs, things that people can take that, like, it will just end up improving the quality of your life. And people, if you study kind of different fields, and study like artificial intelligence and deep learning and neural networks, and kind of study genetics, bioengineering, some of these different fields, it becomes clear that like the human being of the future is going to be like a cyborg of some kind, where they have other enhancements, and like we're modifications of the person that we once were, and it's kind of evolution taking its process in that way, you know, evolution continuing on in that way. So I think that will happen, and I don't think too much about the steroid health risks, because the really crazy health risks do come like long term, but they're only from like abuse. And I think many lifters that go on aren't going to be abusing. Maybe they'll take one or two things, they'll take a couple compounds, and they'll do it for a while, but maybe they don't do it forever. They don't do it to the point where they have like extremely serious long term health ramifications. um, that being said, I think most people are probably maybe not in the place to take steroids. I think for myself, I'm not in the place to take steroids yet, and that's as a competitive lifter and someone that like wants to compete at the highest level. And I compete at a pretty high level now in powerlifting, but I want to take it to the furthest level that I could down the road. The reason that I don't use is honestly because I feel like I'm not mature enough, in the sense that there's a lot of progressing I can still do as a natural lifter, and I feel like if I did make very quick gains, taking something now that that would demotivate me in the future, because if I came off, maybe I wouldn't be able to make those quick gains, and I think there'd be like other risks and other factors that would kind of demotivate me from training, um, or hold me back in other ways. I think 8 years of training is not that much in the grander scheme of things, and that if you look at lifting as a 20-year thing, a 30-year thing, or a lifelong thing, then it's not that much. Um, and that I always have the option of taking in the future if I so choose. Some other things are that if you listen to lifters that are experienced, um, if I listen to like any of my friends, they'll be like, "Oh, just hop on, it's no big deal." But I see that I'm making similar gains to them, and I'm still doing it naturally. I still haven't touched anything, and they're having to take different compounds to make those gains. So what happens from that is that as I progress and as they progress, maybe sometimes they can progress a little faster than me, but for them to continue to progress, they need to take more stuff. They're not doing it through programming or training necessarily. It's not when they take these compounds, like, you don't know what kind of training works and what doesn't, what kind of nutrition works and what doesn't, because the compound is going to do a lot of work for you. You know, it's gonna kind of just take you from point A to point Z, like a warp point in a video game or something, you know. And like this is a common thing that I hear from people that have used steroids, is that you don't know what worked a lot of the time with your training and nutrition. You can coast or be easy with your diet, your sleep, your training. They'll start eating fast food more, and like it won't matter. Like they'll look shredded, they'll look fine, you know. Um, so, and of course there's health problems with that, and you don't want to do that. But my point being that as far as results in the gym, they'll be getting it. So, and I guess my other big point is that, like, if you take me, the natural lifter, and then my friend who's not natural, and you put us together and we're lifting comparable numbers, for me to continue to progress, it just takes more lifting, but I don't have to take stuff. For him, he's already taking a bunch of stuff. So if he wants to continue to progress, he needs to take more stuff on top of that, usually. And if he stopped taking stuff, then he'd kind of hit certain plateaus, and he'd find that he has to go back on again. And he'd have trouble lifting fully naturally again. Even if he could keep his gains, there would be some trouble with that. This is what I suspect, at least talking to my friends who are enhanced, that's kind of how it works. So the second point that I want to make is that if you talk to lifters that are experienced, that have been lifting 10, 15, 20 years or more, especially 20 years or more, a lot of them will say to go as long as you possibly can being natural before you jump on steroids. And the reason for this is that the longer you can do it natural, the better. The longer you can make progress natural, the better, because the best lifters in the world made progress as a natural for a long time. And this has shown that, like, the best lifter off of stuff is going to be the best lifter on stuff. So like, if you study any of the top powerlifters, you look at Yuri Belkin or Ben Pollack or Tom Martin. These are a few names that come to mind. Chris Duffin, Mark Bell. Any of these lifters, they lifted for a long time, 10 plus years, 15 years, 20 years as a natural first. They competed in natural federations first. They didn't take any substances first, and they made their bones as a natural lifter. They made significant results. They got to really crazy Wilks scores, 500 plus Wilks first as a natural before they hopped on stuff. And then even when they hopped on stuff, they didn't hop on too much. They hopped on a little bit because it's not the drugs doing the work. It's their training. It's everything. It's their training, their nutrition, their sleep, their consistency, and the things they're not doing. It's all these little factors that contribute to their success. The best lifters in the world did it naturally for a long, long time before they hopped on stuff. And even when they hopped on stuff, they did a little bit at a time because that's something that's controllable. Then they could take it away and it'll be okay. You can make the most progress if you're taking a little bit of something and you keep the long game in mind. And almost no one can do this. And I think that's a huge thing that separates successful people from not successful people. The people at the very top of the field in lifting, in any other field, but like in lifting especially, are all focused on the long game, and they're focused on the long-term progress and like what the moves they make now, how is it going to affect them 5 years down the road, or 5 to 7 years down the road, and then beyond that 10 years, 20 years down the road. So I think that's very important, and considering that long-term thinking, I think people shouldn't use steroids. That's why I don't just hop on right away. And like even if I'm open to it, I would do it at a later time, years down the road maybe, when I'm kind of satisfied with the progress I've made as a natural. But I continue to make progress. I know I can write out a program, and like I'll continue to add to my lifts. And each year I have been getting stronger. And it's like 5 pounds here, 5 pounds there, 10 pounds here, 10 pounds there. Each of my lifts are going up each year. So I'm making progress. Is it slower than when I very first time I started lifting? Yes, but I'm still making progress. So that's a good reason not to hop on stuff. Um, and finally, I'll just kind of close that, like, why most people should probably not take stuff is that if they're doing it for shallow reasons or kind of bullshit reasons. Let's say you're a guy who's like, okay, I don't really care about any of this, and like I just want to make some gains, put on some muscle, and look good for girls, and that's it. I just want to be shredded for the summer, and that's it. So I'm gonna take some stuff. Okay, like why should you listen to me if that's your plan? Maybe I'm wrong about all this, And I'd say it's in your interest to not take stuff, because if you take stuff, there's a chance that it can make you need to take stuff more often to keep those gains, and that there's a chance that down the road, a couple of years later, you'll lose interest in lifting. Um, I'm not saying it's going to for sure happen, but I'm saying it's something I've seen with a lot of lifters in the gym, and it's interesting that I lifted 8 years, 7, 8 years, and I see that lifters that I started with only like maybe 20%, 30%, like not that many have lasted, that still lift and still train. A lot of people drop out. They either get inconsistent or they just stop coming altogether, and they um, lose the habit of it, lose the fire or motivation or fun of it. And I think that's a big reason why, is that they stop getting the instant gratification, they stop getting the quick results. And that's why I say, if you're just a regular average lifter, don't take it, because you risk doing that. Train naturally for as many years as you can and then take it. If you're a competitor, still don't take it. I think it's in your advantage to take it the further down you can. If you can take it after 10 or 15 or 20 years of lifting, that's better. If you can find ways to make the growth and progress that you would enhance, but you can do it naturally, then that's much more to your advantage, because that just sets the ceiling higher to where you'll start when you finally end up taking things. And another common thing, I mean, all my friends who I'm friends with are enhanced, and I actually like kind of will tell me about a lot about it. And something I see is that like it's ridiculous. I like when I look at them, that makes me want to take less or not take anything at all and not even start, because like I see that they're having the same plateaus that I am. They took the gear, they made some jumps, but then they're having worse plateaus than I am. A lot of them are, and now maybe they don't know what they're doing with their gear, but I feel like it's like a bridge that like you can cross like at a later point, and that the wisest lifters, the most experienced people and the best people in the sport will consistently say like, okay, wait up and do this as many years down the road as you can. Do this way later in life. Do this in your 30s or 40s if you end up even doing it at all. It's wiser, and if you can train 20 years as a natural first, that may be a lot better than hopping on now and making okay results and then kind of stunting results that you can make down the road in the future. So that's kind of my opinion on the topic, and why I think a lot of guys shouldn't use steroids, or should think about it before they do. Think about what their goal is, what their short term and long term goal is, and then does taking steroids align with those goals? Um, I'm curious as to what you guys think. You can let me know what you think in the comments below. I have free links for different things, free programs, free trial of my course, and a couple other things, I believe. So you can check any links down below. And let me know what you guys think. Do you think people should use steroids, and do you think it's okay to just like kind of hop on them? Do you think that it's kind of overrated to train as a natural? Would you agree with me, or would you disagree? And I'm open to any comments or any disagreement or any feedback and thoughts. So let me know, and check out my links down below. And I'll talk to you guys next time.